Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our third and last digital resilience webinar. It's been a great pleasure to have you all here discussing how technology can build resilience, how we can be more inclusive, and how we can use this to really reap the benefits of using technology into building resilience. My name is Elena Monteiro. I am the MCR 2030 coordinator for Europe and Central Asia. This series is organized with ICLE Europe and UNDR in a series of partners. So thank you very much. Today we will be discussing how we can thinking of how you develop a strategy, how can you implement, how can you use this tool. So we'll be showing some of the tools available on the online, but also working with partners on financing, indicators, and all of the how you can access all of these solutions. As usual, this is a very interactive session, so please let us know where you're connecting from. Please feel free to leave your questions while our speakers are presenting. Leave your questions on the Q&A. We will have time for discussion at the end as well. Please interact with each other on the chat. The session will be recorded. We're recording the session, and this will be available on the MCR 2030 website for anyone who wants to check it again or share with colleagues who couldn't join today. With no further ado, I'm going to hand over to our great Nuha Eltinay, who is the coordinator for urban resilience at ICLE Europe, and is also our moderator for the session today. Thank you, Nuha, and welcome everyone.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Helena. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nuha Eltinay, and I'm a Senior Urban Resilience and Climate Adaptation Officer at ICLE European Secretariat, which is a core partner of the MCR 2030 initiative, and currently playing the role as the co-chair of the initiative's European Regional Coordination Committee for Europe and Central Asia. So I'm honored to be here with you today, co-moderating the session with Helena, and also introduce our great cohort of speakers who will tell us more about the different resilience tools that are available out there and how it can really help shape policy framework and financing mechanisms that we can bring together our thinking today to help fill the climate adaptation financing gap, and also address the key challenges that policymakers and cities have when it comes into harnessing the emerging opportunities coming from digitalisation. Before we dive deep into our session today, I think it's important that we note the recent, let's say, efforts that came from the COP27, and how really pledges around, filling the adaptation financing gap, for example, like this G7 Global Shared Financing Facility, the Adaptation Fund, and others, and considering them being all global adaptation initiatives, it's important to note that these goals cannot be achieved unless it's really implemented and showing the evidence at the local and regional scale with resilience actions. So with that note, we are here together to help think about how can we really advance these efforts and really direct climate adaptation investments toward building resilience capacities for both public and private sectors, and accelerate the use of technology and innovation for operational investments. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first two speakers for today, who are Lorenzo Sciulleri and Giulia Ioliseschi from the Urban Resilience Research Network. Lorenzo is the chair of the network, which stands for URNet, He is an associate professor at the International University of Catalonia and senior research scientist at the Barcelona Institute of Science and Technology. He's also the director of International Master's Program in City Resilience Design and Management. Julia is a structural engineer with experience on emergency response and disaster risk reduction projects in different countries around the world, and she's currently undertaking her PhD on the use of digital tools in disaster risk reduction at the International University of Catalonia. Lorenza and Julia, I will hand over to you and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, for the space. I won't take so much time since here I'm not the main person. I'm just opening the floor for Julia Iole, which is the main leading person of this initiative. I'm just introducing what is it about, this initiative. So as you said, the Urban Resilient Research Network is a huge, quite informal hub, network of researchers, more than institutions, counting with some hundreds of people in many countries. And among our initiatives, which are all based on bridging science and practices, there is one led by Julia and a couple of young colleagues and professors, which is focusing on the state of the art of the digital tools for disaster resilience, which is quite specific respect to the broader urban resilience field. But it's quite interesting since it's the absolutely updated state of the art of the latest tools, technology, in which, I mean, most of us understand just the surface of artificial intelligence, drones, how codes, blockchains are really working on the ground. So Julia is a perfect example of an engineer working on the ground, but part of the network, and bridging these two worlds, which sometimes don't speak each other. So without more delays, we have 10 minutes and we're happy to discuss that further. I would just like to let the floor to her, since we will be launching actually today the first version of our online platform, which is gathering all the information about this digital tool for disaster resilience. And being part of this platform, as already introduced, within the Making City Resilience 2030 dashboard. So yeah, without further delay, Julia, I'm leaving you the stage to show the website, which is already shared screen, right?
It should be. Thank you for confirming, and thank you, Lorenzo, and thank you again, everyone, for having us. So this is the platform. The idea, well, the goal of this platform is to share with the community the digital tools that are being used for disaster resilience and the specific projects that use those tools on the field. So again, we connect, the work on the field with the more theoretical part. So this is the homepage. The platform will be extremely interactive. So this map as well will be interactive. You will see the pins to all the projects that we have included in our database. We have addressed different categories. The four main categories are the one you see here. So artificial intelligence and machine learning, robotics, which includes drones, but even satellites, and even under drones, there is a structure of underwater drones, ground drones, air drones, and so forth. Blockchain and mobile payments, and I will quickly, I promise, spend a bit more time on this, since the topic for today is financing mainly, and GSM mapping, which is extremely used on the field lately. As I was saying before, we will associate tools with projects. This is a way to say these tools are, there is a description for each tool, what it is and how it's used in the disaster risk reduction field. This is also to provide a common ground and a bit of introduction for persons that may not be very familiar, for instance, with blockchain. But then we will link the tools to the projects. all the projects that we will present, we have around 70 so far in our database, can be filtered in function of different characteristics. For instance, which DRR phase they address, prevention, emergency response, recovery, and so forth. Which specific natural hazard, can be earthquake, can be tsunami. I really like this project. For instance, country. So you will be able, from the geographic perspective, to analyze which tools and which projects are active, again, geographically. Then what else? Well, and obviously the digital feature that they implement, which can be one of the four we just showed, but even more. Now, let us show you a few examples, and then I know we are extremely time sensitive and I don't have much time, but these are some examples from WFP on how they used blockchain technology in some of their projects. WFP and Oxfam are the two organizations that pushed a bit more this specific technology in the last few years, first with some pilots and then with some projects. So again, I will try not to get too much into the details, but it's extremely interesting how blockchain can be used, not just in relation to cryptocurrencies, so to get some project financed, but also to track not just the money transfer, so from organizations to the beneficiaries, but even goods. So even food or vaccines, so many different things. It's exactly the same technology, which is blockchain, but it's not technically only applied to cryptocurrencies, because it's practically a register, as we know, it's practically a database. It can also be applied to track any movement in the humanitarian sector. It can be goods, it can be money transfer. It has been proven to be particularly effective, even in reducing the costs. But again, I know I cannot be too specific in this phase. It is something that we hope you will find interesting, visiting our platform and learning more how different types of technology can be used. Very last bit, probably one of the most important ones. The idea and the goal is that this platform will be extremely interactive and participatory. So you will not be able to just filter and analyze different projects and different tools, but everyone will also be able to add their project if we want to be part of this platform. Obviously, there is a bit of quality QA and QC, quality assurance and quality control behind. So we will go through every single project before adding it to our platform to make sure it's compliant, consistent, and we'll put it in the right place. But we hope that this platform will be able to grow, to be helpful to local administration, to NGOs, to anyone who would like to know exactly what is going on in this moment in the world, and again, participatory. So everyone who would like to include something that they're doing that is related to digital tools in disaster risk reduction will be free to contact us. Lorenzo, I don't know if you would like to add anything else, or we just leave the floor back to Jole.
I think that as a first preview for waking up the audience curiosity, I guess that is enough just to say that it's now a platform in its first version, which can be useful actually to doing further research for the researchers or for practitioners to understand which is the state of the art, the latest technology. I don't know how much is useful now for in-depth insight about the technical feature of each tool, but The aim is actually navigating through interaction, which is the most appropriate audience, in the sense that it can be easily populated with tutorials and in-depth guidelines and links to find everything and more services. But right now, I would say that starting with 70 projects across the globe and merging both projects, so the applications and the overall description of the latest state of the arts, well, I guess that it's already good starts. But I'm curious to know what's the feedback from the audience.
Of course. Nuha, I think it's back to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Julia and Lorenzo. And really a very, very interesting presentation, and, you know, providing this, let's say, comprehensive, although it's a brief overview. I'm sure that there's more that we're going to explore once we start navigating through the platform, but putting the effort to actually, you know, systematically and put really comprehensively laid tools for different projects, and not even looking into the different stages of actually disaster response, and as well as understanding also the different hazards. I think this is a great effort that you have brought here, and it can definitely support and provide an excellent guidance to help navigate through the complex world of digital resilience tool. We know there's a lot out there, but what is important is actually for us representing cities that we support decision makers in understanding what exactly can they get out of these tools, how it can actually support, for example, their operation financing mechanisms. You brought in the example from the integrated blockchain, which is an excellent way of monitoring cash flows and goods flows, specifically in humanitarian response, which is, I believe, is an important element. And I'm sure that our colleague or one of our speakers today, actually, Jackie, will come and speak more about how important this when it comes into not leaving, leaving no one behind, basically, because we always speak about the importance of making sure that finance goes in and channeled directly into the most vulnerable within our cities, and ensure that having this just transition. So with that, we'll hand over to my colleague Yole, who will take us through a more interactive discussion around the tools presented. So over to you, Yole.
Thank you, Noah, and good afternoon, everyone. Just to quickly follow up with the presentation from Lorenzo and Julia, I think that in the chat they're already asking for the link to the platform, so I just wanted to give them the opportunity to share whether this is already available or will come in the upcoming weeks, just to give this update to the audience that is eager, I think, to explore the platform. So do you have any timeline in mind?
We have the timeline, we have everything, but it's not today available still. We need a few more days, but it's ready. Yeah.
Almost there.
Thank you. So definitely this will come into the informational links and resources that will be shared after the webinar. So now just to get you a bit involved also in sharing your view on what was just presented. I think you just received a quick snapshot of the platform, how it could be used and what could be hosted there. So we would really like you to tell us a bit more of what you think could be useful for your work. And I think that you should see now appearing in your screen some poll questions where you should be able to answer. So the first one, what do you think is the most useful information that the platform could actually provide as an overview of digital resilience implementation tools? So you have a few options there. Please choose the most important one only, so we can have a bit of understanding of what could be more useful in terms of tutorial about the tools, example of case studies. I think it's already there, so very much appreciated. Maybe a forum to discuss among the users and get things going, or also contacts and links to different experts or companies providing these technologies. You also have an option other. If you have anything else in mind that you would like to see there, please write in the chat so we can also collect this kind of feedback. So for now, people are answering. It's important that the tool would include or be assisted by a certification. That's been just included in the chat, so that's definitely something to take into account. Lawrence is not very convinced, but
Julia neither seems.
I think there's time and space for a discussion then afterwards about this. Okay, so the examples and case studies and links are the most appreciated ones, so keep going. And I think that the function of letting people actually include their own examples and case study is very useful in this sense. So I will go to the second questions that I hope you also see. Let me know, because I see all the 3 questions together. Can you see the second question now? Okay, so in terms of what could be improved also, and what would be the main target and goals of the platform, we want to ask you whether the platform should offer overviews, being a gathering point of tools, or actually also deliver education or educational raise awareness on the topic, or maybe it would be better to have both. And I think from the answer, this third option would be the most preferred one. So definitely something to think of, to include. It seems it's not yet available, but there could definitely come in a 2.0 version of the platform. Okay, yeah. Platform tools and short courses are on the same percentage, so but both options would be greatly appreciated by users. And I will move to the third question in relation to end users and audience. The organizer, the developers were wondering to what extent do you think that content in terms of introductory tools, features is user-friendly, or should rather offer in-depth knowledge or for expert only? And I already see the first answers, and the option on expert only is definitely not the best option for the greater audience. So it would be better to integrate a more user-friendly features for a broader audience, but with needs of in-depth analysis and tutorials would be definitely a plus. Okay, and then I think I have one last question that is more open answer, and you can include your inputs in the chat, and it's in relation to the project that Julia shortly presented earlier on blockchain, on the use of blockchain to actually track the flow of fundings among organizations. And maybe we were wondering whether you have any idea of potential limitations of a project like that in terms of accessibility to this kind of technology, whether is this really viable solution, or rather just a fancy technological advancement that would actually impede many from access to it. If you have any thoughts about that, we would be happy to hear here in the chat, and maybe address also this in the later discussion. So yeah, I think it's all from me, and I will give the floor back to Noah. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Yole, for introducing these interesting questions. And I'm sure that Julia and Lorenzo will have more to tell us about the responses received, and how do they actually foresee the future of this platform, and how it can be best utilized by different users. So with that, we will come into our second speaker, who is Mr. Hiro Ato, who is the principal at the who is working as a principal at the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. Hiro oversees the production of the Green City Action Plans, which is one of the core components of the EBRD's flagship initiative, which is known as the EBRD Green Cities, that most of you might have heard or know about. And he also supports more than 50 cities to transition into sustainable and carbon neutral future. Hiro will tell us more about the EBRD digital approach towards achieving digital resilience transition through foundation, adaptation, and innovation. And with that, we would love to hear more from you, Hiro, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nuha. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hiro Ito. I'm a program coordinator of Green City Action Plan at European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm actually here today with my colleague, Arnold. He's our digital smart infrastructure expert. So without further ado, I would like to share a screen. Can everyone see the screen? So
yes,
that's great. Let me get started. Okay, so I would like to first of all give a big picture. So EBRD has a strategic capital framework 2021 and 2025, and digital has been actually identified as one of the key thematic area for the organization to focus on, together with green and equal opportunities. So now EBRD has a clear mandate to focus on mainstreaming digital transformation in our economies where we invest in. Following this decision, approach paper has been developed and identify steps in supporting this digital transformation. And some of the approaches are, as you can see on the bottom left of the screen, there are 3 components: foundation, adaptation, and innovation. So those 3 areas are foundation. This is the activities where we support our clients to have the sort of basic ICT infrastructure, also supporting with developing digital skills and setting up the right legal and regulatory framework. The second component is called adaptation. So this is where our program Green City, EBRD Green Cities, are mainly working on. So this is about undertaking the smart maturity assessment to identify the condition or local context of how much the digital technologies are being used. And we are trying to mainstream digital components into the urban infrastructure projects we are investing in. But also we are mainstreaming digital components in our Green City Action Plan that are the part of the EBRD Green Cities program. The third component is innovation. So this is about supporting startups, new innovation with the venture capital, or also trying out the regulatory sandboxes and so on. So these are the sort of big pillars that we are working under. Just looking at my program, the program we are working on, EBRD in Green Cities. EBRD in Green Cities has been working on focusing on resilience and digital components well before the decision to mainstream digital element at the bank-wide level. This is partly because there is a recognition that the smart solutions are crucial for addressing climate change challenges and fighting against disasters. So there is a sort of study to suggest that the smart city, if implemented in full, can help reduce 10 to 15% of greenhouse gas emission worldwide. So that's the potential of the green implementing smart city solutions. We mainstream inclusion of digital using the 3 main areas. The first is the development of Green City Action Plan. As part of the developing action plan, we undertake smart maturity assessment to understand how much digital technologies are being used for the infrastructure operation and provision of municipal services. But also, as part of the Green City Action Plan, we carry out risk and vulnerability assessment and more we are using GIS mapping and so forth to address the areas of high flood risks, landslide, fire, and so on. But also when the action plans are made, so the Green City Action Plan recommends a set of infrastructure projects and policy measures to achieve the goal that cities set. And more we are integrating smart solution in these actions. And second component is about smart strategy development. Once the Green City Action Plans are completed, we can support our member cities to further develop a more comprehensive smart strategies and help them with technical capacities to implement various measures. And the third is infrastructure investment. We are trying to mainstream the smart components as part of the infrastructure project. So I'd like to give a little bit more details on one of these, and plus a little bit of the lessons we learned on our way. First is the Green City Action Plan and Smart Maturity Assessment. It is important that Smart Maturity Assessment evaluates and highlights some of the existing benefits the city and infrastructure operators are getting from utilizing smart, but also assessment helps to identify some of the governance challenges. What are the things needs to change so that we can utilize more data and then transition into a more advanced digital economy. We learned that it's important to understand the local context, the level of the understanding towards the technologies and the legal framework. And it is important then to systematically integrate these smart strategies into cities' existing or future plans or goals and actions they have in mind. The second component is the capacity building. Based on the understanding of the local context, we provide tailored support to different city clients based on the local needs and the local context. We also undertake the knowledge sharing activities so that the city officials can learn from each other. And also we are in the process of developing a what's called a digital roadmap and the compendiums with the type of digital solutions that are available to the cities. The third component is the financing infrastructure projects. As I mentioned, it's important to consider integrating smart solutions into the infrastructure project. We are considering some kind of mechanisms like a performance indicator to make sure we explore a wide range of possible smart solutions are considered in EBRD's projects. It's important to highlight that the goal of this is not to focus so much on the technology in itself, but rather does the inclusion of smart components achieve a better outcome? Does it achieve a better quality of life, better financing, better environmental outcome, but also more importantly, would it make it more resilient? I would like to also discuss, explain some of the sort of the work we are doing under the infrastructure team in general. As I mentioned, there's a lot of work going on to develop what's called a roadmap and compendium in each of the different infrastructure sectors like transport, water sector, energy, solid waste, building, which include cooling, heating, and building energy efficiencies, mainly for our banking colleagues, but also for our clients and other infrastructure operators. The roadmap helps make the recommendations how to transition from now to the goals. For example, in the building sector, we will have multi-story housing. So what are some of the steps we can recommend for these buildings to become a very digital, smart ready infrastructure? And compendium is rather like a set of tools that are available for cities and other infrastructure operators and asset owners to consider implementing. And then we also developing a set of case studies. So now I'd like to explain some of the smart projects that were identified in the Green City Action Plan. We categorize them into three large sort of groupings. So one is the projects that are entirely smart or entirely digital in its nature. Things like the open data platform, management platform, digital twins. And the second component is the smart enhanced. So this is some of the majority of work we are working on at the moment. So these are the addition to the existing infrastructure services, like adding a smart meters to the water projects or including a real-time public transit information system for the bus projects we are financing. The third component is being smart ready. So when we are supporting financing infrastructure project, we make sure when the time is ready, the infrastructure operators can upgrade the services to include some of the new infrastructure and new smart technologies that are available in the market. So these are some of the projects we have financed, we have supported in a Green City program. Retrofitting of LED lighting in Poland, supporting a wastewater treatment project in Macedonia, and the smart grid in Armenia. So I'd just like to show some of the examples. This is a project from the Armenia electric network of Armenia. So what we did is the grid system we supported with an automated control system. Some of the advantage is that this improved energy efficiency of the grid, electric grid, and also by doing so we are allowing the energy generated from the renewable sources to come into the grid system, but also we helped to reduce the operation cost by more than 10%. So these are one of the examples. The second one is the example I mentioned from the wastewater treatment plant in Skopje, Macedonia, North Macedonia. The sensors has been installed, and then in the central control system, we are monitoring the power and heat cogeneration facilities. And this was also made as a sort of smart ready infrastructure so that we can further upgrade the sort of digital components when the time is ready for the infrastructure operator. Another example is in Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar, we piloted a smart metering for the district heating services for 250 smart meters been installed for each of the apartments. So that helped to monitor district heating service a little bit better, and that allowed more people to access this district heating network. Another example is this in Sarajevo in Bosnia. A Green City Action Plan was developed in 2000 and developed and approved in 2021, and that identified that air quality was a main issue and mainly coming from the transport sector. So EBRD, after the Green City Action Plan was made, financed the introduction of new trolley buses. We improved the tram network. And we also bought the new rolling stocks of the tram. And in addition to that, we supported an introduction of automated traffic management system. And this traffic management system allows public transport to be prioritized and so on, so that we applied a sort of more comprehensive approach to the sort of the operation of infrastructure. Last but not least, I would like to talk about the digital twin and smart data platform. These are some of the projects we are considering supporting to some of our city clients. Digital twin is a very beneficial tool because it identifies the potential flood risks or the wind flows or the heat island effects by creating a virtual image in this digital space. So we do like to promote cities to invest in these tools to have a better preparedness for various kind of climate change challenges, but also smart data platform. This is a good tool to monitor the infrastructure services the service providers are providing. So these are some of the areas we are trying to finance more into the future. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope that was useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Hiro, for the very, very interesting presentation, showing us, the overall strategic framework and, how the different, let's say, shift from thematic areas into projects implementation and even reflecting on how that managed to achieve impact in terms of cost benefit as well. It was really interesting to hear all of these examples from Mongolia, from Armenia, as well as Sarajevo. And even what was mainly interesting here is that it was not only the operational component that where the investments have been measured, but also how that managed to achieve more equal access into, for example, issues around and tackling issues around energy poverty, for example, in Mongolia, and the heating services monitoring, as well as when it comes into air quality and enhancing access to public transportation systems in Sarajevo. So thank you. Thanks a lot, Hiro. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions in the chat. Very interesting discussion that also myself is eager for coming into the Q&A. So we will keep that for there. And we will move from here maybe into our third, last but not least, speaker with us today, who is Dr. Jackie. Jackie is joining us today, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Flying Binary. Jackie has been selected as one of the 15 most influential women in the UK technology, and as well as one of the 21st most inspiring women in cyber. She's an expert advisor for the UK government, European Commission, and the United Nations. She also founded the Flying Binary in 2009 and deliver what we call keen on delivering that single mission on building deep technology to deliver an inclusive society and leaving no one behind. Jackie, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nuha. An absolute delight to be here with you today. One of the most important topics there is, in my view, is the whole resilience piece of this. So as you say, we founded Flying Binary after 10 years of web science, transdisciplinary web science research across the planet, because we had a single mission, which was to build the technology using that web science with deep technology. And I need to explain what that is. We've talked digital so far, but deep tech is part of our future. Well, back in 2009 it was part of my future. It's now becoming part of our future for the industrial Internet of Things, that always on, always connected society, because we had a single concern, which was the technology wouldn't be enabling, and it would definitely leave people behind. So we were building technology to understand what that would mean for our society, because the industrial Internet of Things changes our world, not just, it's not just a technology intervention. And the key thing that we focus on is ensure we leave no one behind by that pioneer in web science. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Jackie Taylor. I'm CEO and co-founder of Flying Binary. And I'd love to share with you where the work we're doing in the UN and the work we're doing in Europe to literally build that, that industrial Internet of Things, that always connected future. So bear with me. So I think that when I realized the world had understood was when I got the first award as the Global IoT Innovator. I'm only one of 2 women that hold that award in that top 10. But it became very resonant that there was more than us that cared about the impact in society. when in 2018 I was bombarded from across the world of things that were going wrong with technology in our cities, in our nations. And I became known as the global smart city czar, because technology should not be the outcome. It should only ever be the enabler, and it wasn't. We talked about smart all the time, and that's a technology focus. And so what I was able to do was put the evidence on the table for what that meant for climate change, what that meant regarding an inclusive society. And that's really been my work so far. I delivered that for the G20 in 2020 and their future digital economy plan for the G20, and based on that inclusion agenda, using the web science evidence that we'd curated. I'll show you a little bit of that later. And I'm also an expert advisor in the UN on the 2030 plan. We're focused on the work we do between the COPs in order to reset the agenda, look at implementation, and obviously we're very focused at the moment for planning for COP28 in Dubai. And then what I also have done, and I want to share with you today, is I've delivered that industrial Internet of Things technology and created brand new style policies in the EU initially. And I've used that to create the resilience strategy for Ukraine. I can see one of my Ukrainian colleagues is on the stream today. So really great to see that. So that's what I've done and what it's about. And the reason for this change was I got involved in this global movement back in 2014 as a member of the UK's Cabinet Office and an independent advisor to the minister. And it was a global movement from a UK point of view that we have led using international standards. Standards are a primary vehicle for inclusion, something I passionately believe in. And it also had an open data focus. I know that because I was one of the people that put the G8 Charter together to make it. And that was, again, an inclusion mission, because it was about, if we're transparent about what we're doing, then actually we can open the data that we're doing it with, and we can knowledge share. And that was a really good idea at the time, but it didn't turn out to be the right idea. And generally what we were doing for what we call supply-led cities is using technology to deliver efficiency. So it was about the technology, it was about money saving, it was about open data, and that didn't turn out to get us anywhere, which is why in 2018, I was bombarded from across the world with help, we're in trouble. And so what I did was reset this agenda under a number of different things, and I'll show you some examples. We don't talk about open data anymore, we only talk about shared data. I was in the European Parliament on the 13th of November 2015, the day that Paris was attacked, and I had to be taken across borders to get home. And they'd used our open data, the criminals had, in order to do that. And by 2 days later, Flying Binary was the counterterrorism company it is today. And what we also needed to do was look at delivering changes to outcomes. Measurement's important, evidence is important, but have we made a difference? So the new concept is about demand-led cities, the other side of the market. How? So this is one of the pieces from the UN, digital twins, which Hero's already mentioned to us. This is in a setting in Norway, just because I happen to like Norway. The top one is about the water system and understanding the key performance indicators that we've developed in the ITU, agency of the UN, in order to measure the outcomes for our water. Water, a scarce resource pretty much across the world now. Just in the same way we focus on energy, we have a big piece of work around water. And then looking at future public services, if we take that demand-led approach I've just described and actually use a resilient focus for it, we can look at our public services in conjunction with all of our citizens at a societal level, and we can determine priorities. And digital twins allow us to do that. And obviously in the counter-terror domain, they allow us to do rather more than that. How else? This is a platform that we originally, or a service that we originally have in our counter-terrorism toolkit, but it's a mechanism we've used to deliver the unheard voices of citizens and communities and populations to the top tables in the UN, in the G20, in the EU, and explain the value of demand-led deep tech innovations. Just to give you an idea of that evidence, at an organizational level, it usually has a 6% uplift, P&L positive to when you do that. And if you're talking at nation state level, it's approximately across the world, or certainly across the 60% of the world's GDP, 4.4% growth in GDP. So it's why would you do it, evidenced across the world. This happens to be about the inclusion agenda, people agreeing that robots improve lives, but don't ask them whether they'd like autonomous vehicles, because the chart doesn't look like that. So that's part of the G20 evidence, but that's another story. And I know Nuha has me on a strict timetable, so I'm moving on. This one is artificial emotional intelligence. As an AI expert, as AI experts, we only ever build responsible AI. I'm an AI expert in the European Commission, and I'm curating with other experts alongside me the SME market, and obviously involved in the AI Act. And we use this service to evidence the misinformation and the online harm that is being spread across the world. And we can take text, we can take images, but really the damage is being done across our world to our society with video. And this happens to be a video, it happens to be a city nowhere that you'll know. And it helps us understand that the AI does the heavy lift and shift. It reviews all the awful images of things that are being shared across the world to impact our nation states. And it tells the human where to look, what's called advisory AI. Citizen priorities, just the top three in terms of what we found across the world. They care about most the access to future citizen services. And that is because by challenge, because they don't have it, or by choice, they don't want it. Online is not the preference necessarily. So how are you going to provide access? And in our European setting, we have 80 million people who have access requirements. So that's their number one priority. This is backed by 3 years of research in the EU. They're focused on impact. Tell me what you're going to do for me. Tell me how it's going to matter. They're focused, if they're under 30, they will countenance nothing else, being able to participate in that and creating what our younger generations call shared priorities. And I'm delighted to say that as part of my role in the SEN standards group TC465, which looks at cities and communities, we're now building the first citizen strategy standards to be able to share that knowledge and give everybody access to what that looks like. So the EU priorities and everything that we've done for the EU Green Deal, we've unlocked closed data, the whole data spaces, and you see that unfolding across the EU 27. That is to be able to bring this evidence base to the benefit of Europe and our 450 million citizens. I'm a fire starter that holds a pen for that agenda. And we've moved from indicators to outcomes. We do measure, of course, that's important, but how do you know what outcomes you're creating? And then we're reimagining the whole way citizen services are being designed and using to that citizen-orientated service design, which almost exclusively does not exist today. So those are the top three priorities. There's a long list in the EU, but the top three I wanted to share with you today. And thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and I'm very much looking to the discussion that comes next. Thank you, Nuha.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jackie, for the very, very interesting presentation and getting actually to learn a lot about the work that you are doing, but actually also linking that into a lot of the components that our speakers have brought up earlier, for example, like the digital twins, but also sending some very strong and key messages. Jackie, as you've noted, I've just noted few, but that was really, really interesting listening into it. Technology should not only be an outcome, but an enabler. developing, and building technology to understand what does it mean for our society. And I think using the technology to deliver efficiency, not only, just having open data, but also shared data, and looking into to what extent actually standardization can operate as a primary vehicle for inclusion. So thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing these really interesting experiences. And with that, I think we will move into maybe mostly the end, or maybe the last part of our conversation today, where we're going to open the floor for Q&A. So I would like to encourage our participants to please have your questions ready on the chat, and also thank the ones who have already posted their questions and inquiries, and have a very, let's say, interactive and engaging discussion. And with that, I would like to first open the floor to our colleagues, Lorenzo and Julia, to comment on the results that we have received from the poll on the let's say, the operational structure of the platform, in terms of it being like a platform just for sharing case studies, or maybe beyond, how that can really operate also in terms of the educational resources that it can provide, and what type of audience that can also make the best use of the platform. So the floor is yours, Lorenzo and Julia.
Okay, thank you. Well, I go first, just as an overview. It was really useful to see the results, a bit indeed as we expected, so happy for that. Not nerd in-depth stuff. I guess that it will come, but indeed, it's the results highlight actually one of the gaps. Maybe Julia can introduce more, since she is a specialist. But in the sense, this digital gap about people not being fully aware of what's available, which are the costs, which is the learning curve many times. And so speculating on the usefulness of things that they have no clear idea how actually work. And so indeed, the very aim of the platform from the beginning was bridging and filling these gaps. And so was never aim as super specialist expert only, and developing hopefully through, for the research purpose, for the education purpose, for the tutoring and guiding through the process purpose. And so enhancing the quality of response and the quality of the disaster resilience performance. I don't know whether Julia, because I guess she's the most robust and resilient among us, because she's quite heavily ill, but I don't know whether you're able to jump on my responses to further comment. I have also feedbacks about how we check. Of course, we will be checking. There will be a scientific committee and an executive board within this platform. So the consistency, there will be some quality check, of course, to look at the consistency of the proposed project before to put them online. In respect to a question about carbonization, that's interesting, because indeed, we discussed a lot about it. There are digital tools for everything, for enabling participation, for transformation in cities, from ecosystem services and upgrading community resilience. So that under the urban resilience agenda, there could be a huge platform gathering everything, but we thought it's actually better to just focus on disaster resilience mainly, since that's help in target an already broad audience dealing with disasters, rather than try to embrace everything, from carbonization to then other climate stresses, and then why not socioeconomic stresses, and there are digital tools for organizing, for community, and so we're not tackling carbonization as we're not tackling other climate stresses or socioeconomic stresses or other resilience-related potentially useful tools, but just to be focused. I don't know, Julia, if you want to add something.
Yeah. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay. So with regards to the other platforms that are available and the fact that we are somehow filling a gap, there are a few platforms. One, for instance, is the Radar Frontier that is built within the UN, by the way. The limitations, for instance, of that specific platform is that mainly UN-related projects are included in the platform. So a good number of projects and implementations are out of their scope. And if we think about prevention web as well, relief web, as always, the information is out there, you know. The point is how you convey it. And what we are trying to do is to be very specific, as Lorenzo was saying, on disaster risk reduction, so that we don't overlap too much with other fields. And user-friendly, it's very important, because even the Radar Frontier platform that is built within the UN, we tested quite a bit. Again, they have limited number of projects, but the point is also that it's not very user-friendly to use. So obviously we did our research before starting. We checked what was out there, and we're trying to find the best way to get not just the experts involved, but also people who are approaching this field. And we know it's a big challenge. We hope we'll be good at it.
Yeah, I don't know if there is something else we could get back to the audience.
Yeah, there is another question about the platform, which is asking about how that can improve from an educational perspective, like adding virtual reality tools in places where the digital tools can be used and how it can be used for educational purposes. So is that something that you think can be integrated?
Yes, I think that's quite the easiest part to integrate, in the sense that the mission of the overall resilience research network is to, of course, drive research, but also to work on outreach, dissemination, and capacity building. So as we are investing in online education, for example, now, and have master degree, but also tutorials, courses, we have different projects here in Europe, Erasmus project for creating MOOC and online tutorials about climate resilience design, for example. Then for this platform, that's quite natural, I would say, in order to guide an appropriate understanding of the state of the art, which is quite complex, or can be actually complex to understand. Then the evolution through tutorships, programs, and videos and tutorials. That's something that to me is natural within this platform to enhance the understanding and the dissemination of these tools. Otherwise, to me it's a bit too static and left to the interpretation of the capacity of people to grasp what they can. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Lorenzo. I think we're all eager for the launch of the platform and exploring all of these interesting opportunities that could come out of understanding how these tools work and how it can really feed into supporting the implementation of the project. So it's not just the knowledge sharing, but also the best practices that can be implemented on the ground. So thank you. Thanks a lot, Lorenzo. And we have also other questions in the
Nuha, you've gone on mute.
Yeah, I was switching between the different tabs and I realized that one of them was clicking my mic automatically. So the EBRD question was asking about how to join the Green City project and also how the data is being managed, stored and applied with the local governments and like how is the management of the data taking place in order to support with the different projects and examples that we have seen. So Hiro,
thank you. Very good question. In terms of the membership, there are several criteria. It's on our website, but in short, it needs to be in our countries of operation, and we need to have a certain population threshold. And the third component is we need to have at least one investment project identified with the municipality or one of the infrastructure operators. But there's more details on the website if you're interested to participate. Second question about the data management. I think that's a very important topic. In order for us to undertake the action plan exercise and to identify infrastructure projects, we do hire external experts to collect data, analyze data, and then that's actually stored within ourselves. But it's the data itself is something that city owns. So we do encourage city to sort of actively share these data and to utilize it for better other decision-making processes. It depends on the cities we are working on. Some clients are quite advanced in sharing data. They do already have a number of open platform tools, but some cities that we work with are a little bit behind, so they're not anywhere near disclosing or sharing data. So we do like to sort of help advance their sort of data management and sharing as part of their capacity. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thanks, Hiro. That is definitely very, very comprehensive. Thanks a lot for your response. And just a very quick reflection on that, Hiro, in terms of data gaps and data challenges, because we know when it comes into climate change, assessing climate risks, in particular physical and transition risks, there is always these challenges of having reliable and consistent climate-related information within municipalities. So that's from one side. Another side, when it comes into capacity building, also you have highlighted in the presentation that you do work with governments in terms of building capacities, trying to fill in the data gap and understanding the local context. So we would really appreciate if you can maybe highlight more on the challenges that comes in when it comes into processing these projects and understanding really how to capture the benefits of such projects like you know the projects that you have introduced, and how really you can integrate that with all of the let's say maybe not having all of the components of an enabling environment for investment.
Yeah, that's also a very good question. The data gaps, data challenge, again, depending on the city, yeah, we do have a huge issue, particularly cities with the lower capacity. So in our program, we don't usually create a new data. We usually rely on the existing data source. So when there is lack of data, it is very challenging for us. So that's why I'm actively participating in sort of partnership and seeking partnership in another platform to find out other institutions or other organizations that may have data. So what we're talking about, the data platform and things like that, I think that will be a good, very useful resources, because everyone wants to find data and then often there's a lack of it. So yes, one approach is to strengthen the data collection at the municipal level, but among the international communities where we are supporting different clients on different purposes, I think that another angle is to sort of work more closely and collaboratively to find and address the data gap. There is no magic solution. We just have to just to start building on that. Capacity building angle, again, that's a little bit challenging. Maybe I'm looking at, I don't know, do you want to give an example? my colleague.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
So
yeah, maybe you
yes.
I need to plug it.
Can you hear me like that? So on the capacity building angle, I think we can differentiate the work we're doing with the city during the development of the Green Cities Action Plan, where it's more through direct engagement with the different departments and the workshop we're organizing, that we try to work on capacity building and so awareness raising. And on the other side, each city has a green city, what we call a green city officer, which is the focal point of the city for the monitoring of the action development and for all the relation with the city. And it's through this network that we aim to provide further capacity building throughout the year with topical workshop session with the Green Cities officer. And just complementing on the data point, as Hiro said, there's no magical solution, and our smart maturity assessment is not the panacea of assessment. It's a rather light touch assessment of how the city is performing through a smart city lens. But it's even if it was a light touch, it really, as Hiro said, it really enabled us to understand what is the level of data capture, and then data integration and data usage, looking at the different sectors, so we can quickly understand if there is any major gaps and how these gaps can be then answered through a soft or hard intervention through the action plan. And so, yeah, that would be my compliment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And if you do not mind just introducing yourself to our audience. Sorry, Hugh, can you hear me? I'm not sure if our audience would like to know more about your colleague and who have contributed to the response on the capacity building.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah.
Can you introduce?
Yeah, if you don't mind introducing yourself, please.
Ah, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Yes, sure. The essential. Yeah. So my name is Arnaud Franière, and I am hearing myself here second time. Yeah, I'm working directly with Hiro, and I'm responsible for the smart city component of the Green City program.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your contribution. And we would like also to keep you with us a bit longer and follow up on your contribution on the capacity building. And actually, there are two elements that are very, very strongly connected to that, because once we have cities that are ready to apply such programs, then this also links us into two very important elements. The first element is the project's preparation, because once you have the capacity, then you move more into the technical level, understanding, let's say, or maybe preparing the upfront costs that needs to develop these projects and ensure that they are projects that are ready and bankable to investors. And then the second element, which is building the private sector confidence. So if you can link the capacity building element into this and how it can really build the institutional capacity on those different levels, that will be definitely very helpful. Thank you.
I'm happy to. So yeah, I think you're really right to point out the need and to support project preparation from previous experience with municipality. This is indeed a strong link, and it's often the missing piece between all this noble intention from the citizenship stakeholders and the finance world, which has its own approach, financial framework. And I think maybe my response will be quite high level, but the Green City, I think the whole Green Cities program is to support this project preparation through an holistic approach to urban development. And while it's not the action plan might not be action ready to invest in, but it's definitely also bringing actors closer to financial to funding opportunities that essence of the program is really to connect IFIs and other funding mechanism with municipal level project, including also citizenship and private sector, obviously. Not sure if that answered the full.
Absolutely, thank you. Thank you.
Supplement the.
Yes. Hiru, would you like to reflect? Yes, please.
Yes, there's in addition to that, there was the tools that EBRD is developing at the moment on the compendium I mentioned earlier. So for example, let's say there's a technology to improve the building energy efficiency. And of course, these are sort of the tools that are being developed. What are the sort of amount of energy efficiency benefits versus the cost of implementation? So that is also being added to the preparation of different investment projects. Sometimes it financially makes sense to include different technologies for various benefits, but sometimes it's too costly. In that case, it may not be the more suitable solution. So that's the project preparation angle that we are looking into. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Hiro and Ahmed, for your very interesting responses, and appreciate your coordination on that as well. So with that, we will go maybe to also our speaker, Dr. Jackie, and would like to have also your reflections. So we've heard about the digital tools. We've heard about the different the support that is being provided in order to enhance resilience financing, but also implementation of projects on the ground and ensure better accessibility to public services and municipal funds. So with that, and with the aim for us from this discussion to ensure that a wider financing system is actually directing capital towards building resilience, not acting against, we would love maybe to have your reflections on that from a citizen-oriented lens. How do you see that really being inclusive of the citizen's voice, and really reflecting on maybe the underlying conditions and the vulnerabilities that people are facing in cities and regions, and how that can be brought up into the wider audience and integrated into the different, not only the financing mechanisms, but also into, as we've seen, the city's action plans and the different tools that can be developed and utilization of technologies for that reason. So over to you, Jackie.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'd actually like to preface that with the question that Faisal's asked in the Q&A, because what was asked was, in the UN space, big data versus community access, how do you see it? Is it possible or not? Well, I'm the co-founder of the data journalism industry. Myself and Simon have now have an industry across the world of 7 million of us of journalists, and actually the web science that we pioneered was around the data gaps that Hiro was just talking about. Because that we build not digital but deep technology, and it's built not on the web, on the online world that everybody's talked about today, but it's built on the internet provision, the actual the underpinning of our online world. You don't have to have data gaps, and in fact, if you do have data gaps, you can impute them. And so we have a core part of our work, perhaps when we're talking in the finance world, and we've just had a new legislation in the UK around economic crime, is to use that technology to fill in those gaps. And one of the ways we do that is actually including the unheard voices, because many of the things that we get involved in are actually the same voices at the same table. And really, I want to talk about, if you're going to bring an inclusion agenda to the G20, you have to have some good reason why they would listen, because that's 60% of the world's GDP, and the things that we're talking about today, you have to find a way to say why it matters that we take a different route for this. And the reality of it is technology is actually a neutral resource, but in human hands it can be something that's advisory when you talk about enabling technology, or something that's adversarial. And so, you know, my contention is always, whenever we're doing these things, this should not be opinion-based, it should be evidence-based. And we should always have the golden thread of those unheard voices we don't usually include in discussions, particularly when you think, you know, citing it on Europe, but it's anywhere in the world really, our European institutions that are part of a fabric of the way Europe is. How do we get those unheard voices heard? And it's something that, you know, global leaders have an issue with, because it's what might they say? And my response to that is always, if we don't have that evidence, we'll never know what they'll say, but we'll never achieve the outcomes either. We can't do it to them, we must do it with them. And as I said when I presented, anybody under 30 will find their own way. So bringing those voices to the discussion, evidencing that. And quite frankly, you know, the Web Science we've pioneered, the data journalism industry, we have 34 million citizens that participate in that every day on the stories of resonance that we share across the world. And they tell us what matters. And then if we need to follow up on that, so say we're looking at emissions, our cities create 60% of the emissions across the world. If we're going to become more resilient from anything, we have to be able to put a package of things together that are supportive of that forward view for climate change, because that's the only way we do become resilient. And so we ask them in their millions, we ask them in a territory, we ask them in a city. And what has always happened? I mean, we've only been doing this work in the public domain for 13 years, but we have 23 years of transdisciplinary research that sits behind this. And what always happens is we don't often disagree on what needs to be done. We always disagree on the priority it needs to be done. So we change the order of it when we bring inclusion to the table. And then, of course, if what you're doing is having a supportive environment, given this technology is changing our society, as I mentioned in my presentation, you're always going to be doing that collaboratively. And one of the very first things I learned when we became a counter-terrorism company is communities defeat terrorists. But that's because it's an inclusive agenda. If you do this as a community with shared values, then that's actually how you get the transition and deliver the outcomes. And if we're doing that without the societal view, without the direct voices of citizens, we are always going to have the wrong priorities. Not necessarily the wrong things, but we will, I guarantee, after 13 years of across the world, we always do it in the wrong order. So hopefully that spreads a little bit of light onto that. And Faisal, I hope that answers your question. Is it possible? Yes. Not in the way we do it with digital. No. We have to be able to understand the way that works across the world in a more holistic way, in a more inclusive way.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jackie. And definitely we are, I believe, going with more questions back home rather than answers. And how to define priorities is definitely a key question to be raised. So thank you. Thanks a lot for your very insightful contributions. And with that, I will hand over to Helena to tell us more about the MCR 2030 initiative, next steps and closing remarks. Over to you, Helena.
Thank you so much, Nuhai. Thank you so much for all of our speakers, Dr. Taylor, Hiro, Lorenzo, Yole, Julie, Yole. Thank you so much for joining. This is a very bittersweet moment because it's the last of our series. It has been 6 months working on digital resilience, working with cities. ICLEI has led this initiative within MCR 2030. For all the cities all the city officials that are joining here today, if your city is still not part of MCR 2030, I would invite you to join as a city or to join as an organization as well. The idea is that MCR 2030 becomes this converging space for partners and cities to collaborate and to share resources, to share tools, so that they can we can support cities in building their strengths and being more resilient to climate change and disasters. I am going to share on the link the website to MCR 2030, but we will all send to you the presentations and the recording of this session in the next hours, later today or early tomorrow. So please stay tuned. For the next semester, we have thematic semesters. For the next semesters, we are aiming to work on resilience finance. So how we touched a little bit on this today, but the idea is to understand what are the resources that we can bring to cities in terms of climate finance, resilience finance, how cities can get access to that, how cities can communicate the co-benefits of investing in resilience, and really shifting the focus to a cost into an investment. So please stay tuned, because we will have activities, events, knowledge products, and many resources to the cities available. Once again, thank you so much, eClay, for the partnership on this series. Thank you for our distinguished speakers, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.